Is there a limit on how many tracks or stems I can or should use in a song?
There's not a limit on the number of tracks you should use, but just because you could use 100 tracks doesn't mean you should,
Mm,
I think. So no limit, but the more you use, the more complex it's going to get. And why make your job harder than it
mm,
already is? You know, like if
yeah.
you're using like 50 stems, if you've got 50 stems going on, what you don't want to have happen is that you're digging for stems in the middle of a rehearsal or during
Mm,
sound check when the sound team's like, "Hey, we're getting the guitar track, down the wrong, where it's coming out
yeah.
of the percussion." You don't want to be like digging through 100 stems to
Right.
find that track, just because it's not practical. You can't do it quickly. So I would say I'm a big believer of just keeping things simple
Yeah.
and don't use more than you need. If you use too much, also the mix is going to get really muddy because there's just too much competing,
Yeah.
especially if you've already got a full live band. If
Mm,
you're using a ton of tracks, it's just going to compete with what you're already doing live. So just keep it simple. Like honestly, people are going to be able to hear the tracks better too if there's less to listen to. Like it's just simpler that way. If
mm,
it's just a percussion track, that's what's coming through.
yeah.
Also, I would say that if you are using more than like, I don't know, let's just say if you're using a lot, if you're using like 10 tracks, which I think is pretty common for most people using like
Yeah.
10 tracks, make sure you're using an audio interface like TrackRig so that you're
Mm,
sending the tracks out of their own output so that your sound
yeah.
team can mix the tracks. Because otherwise they're just getting one mix of all the tracks together, and if they want to turn the guitar down or the tambourine down, they can't do it because you're just sending it
Yeah.
all together. So I like to group my tracks together. So all my guitars will go down a group, all my percussion tracks will go down a group, all my keyboard tracks will go down a group, and then I send
Yeah.
those out three different outputs. So keys, guitars, percussion, and then the sound team can actually adjust the volume of those groups.